Hello and welcome to a new episode of What the F. Now, it's been a while since I've done this, but I thought I'm going to try and get back into not necessarily regular schedules, because frankly I've said that before, and I tend to leave it a long time between episodes. I'll try not to this time, I swear, but in kind of compensation or sorts to the few who watch these, I'm actually going to do 2 videos this week. One is kind of light-hearted, and the other one is the one I'm doing now. This one will be kind of serious. Now, the topic for this episode, I kind of hesitated to do in a way because it's to do with recent events that incite very strong feelings, and I've had many discussions and debates with varying people about the subject, and a lot of the time I came up against people who, for the most part, disagreed with me, and it baffles me as to why. Now, this is a kind of a serious subject. I don't delve very much with the serious subjects. I mean, I have done in the past. I mean, I look back at my list of videos and I talked about perception of women in the media, abortion, and those would be the most serious kind of subjects, like about like I talked about Michael Jackson and what he's allegedly done, and also the most recent one I think was the one about should a famous person's crime prevent you from enjoying their work. So I've done serious subjects in the past, but I think this is the most serious because I've hesitated to do this one because I know there are some people, whoever may watch this video, depending on how many see it, a lot are not going to agree with me. And I've buried the lead long enough. The subject is Israel, most specifically not just Israel, Hamas, and the recent grief that's been going on in the Gaza Strip over there. Now, I didn't really know a whole lot about the deep fucking running feelings that are going on in there. They clearly don't like each other. But I was always curious as to why. I mean, what is the Gaza Strip and why it's so important, why they're fighting over it. Now, I've rather than using the kind of notepad on the computer, I just thought I'd try to test something that I've got notepad. As you can see, it's got notes that I took. So if you hope you'll forgive that occasionally I would glance down at this just to see what I'm talking about. Because I as much as I like to ad-lib and just say what I want, it makes for a more coherent video if I know what I'm talking about. So I looked up in the history of it because I wanted to know what was the Gaza Strip, why they fucking free, why all the fucking nonsense in the panic. So I decided to essentially look up some of the history. I don't want to go on for too long. Again, I tried very hard to keep these videos as short as possible. So I just looked up the history, and here it is in brief. Again, if I'm wrong in any detail whatsoever in this video, do let me know, because I want to be as accurate as possible, and I try to be. So what I looked up so far basically says that Israel captured the Gaza Strip during the Six-Day War in 1967. And apparently then Israel actually withdrew from the Gaza Strip in 2005, and this group called Hamas came into play. Now, Hamas is widely recognized by most world leaders, most governments around the world, as a terrorist organization. But they managed to win the majority in local elections that were in 2006. And Israel and most other international leaders and governments around the world refused to recognize Hamas's right to govern, to rule. Because, it's a terrorist organization. You certainly don't want a terrorist organization running an entire country. So a lot didn't refuse to recognize the results of the election. Israel, in response to this, cut off aid to Gaza, and again, I don't know if that's necessarily the start of all the bad feeling, but it's clear that the Hamas is like a Muslim organization. There's a Muslim country on one side, and then you have the Jews in Israel. And historically, we all know that the Jews and the fucking Muslims have never gotten along. I mean, apparently Hamas has said countless times publicly that they'd like nothing more than to see the complete and total obliteration of Israel. Translation, we want to see the complete and total obliteration of Jews. So I would imagine Hitler would have liked Hamas, because fucking Jews, they had the same goals, same agenda. But basically, there's been skirmishes back and forth between like Hamas and Israel for a long time, because again, they don't like each other. I mean, Israel's stance and attitude seems to be, look, we'd rather there was peace. We'd rather things to be nice and happy. But by fuck, we'll defend ourselves if you fucking come at us. Hamas's attitude seems to be, look, we don't like you, we want to kill you. Okay, we want to wipe you off the face of the planet. We don't want peace. We don't want to have a cozy relationship. We don't want to get on. We want you gone. And again, sad attitude to have, but them's the bricks. So what started recently, the recent grief that we've all heard about, everyone the world over knows what's going on over there. Like what started it all? And there were a couple of factors actually. I looked it up, and apparently some of this I didn't know, incidentally. But apparently, according to what I found online, Wikipedia is my information source. Now I know you can mess and tinker with the facts, so please do let me know if I'm wrong in it. But according to what I found online, American-sponsored peace talks between Hamas and Israel collapsed. America was trying, mediate, give peace a chance, that kind of thing. Kind of like what the Americans did in Northern Ireland. For the peace process, they had an American come in and kind of be the go-between, the mediator, if you will. Just, try and get both sides to agree. Clearly that didn't work. And then apparently rival Palestinian factions were trying to form a coalition government in Gaza, and apparently that would have been bad for everybody. But the most recent one, that I don't need to look at my notepad for that, but the most recent fucking grief that really catapulted this into a fucking auto war. This isn't a minor skirmish, it's a war, internal, civil war, whatever you want to call it. It's a bad thing that's happening now. Was 3 Israeli teenagers on a school trip. They were apparently returning from a school trip, were murdered. They first went missing. The first I heard of it was 3 Israeli teenagers missing. Nobody knew where they were. Accusations then started flying. And it was widely kind of, people believed, the Israeli authorities, and it was generally believed that Hamas, for whatever reason only known to them, killed these 3 boys. Why, I don't know. Again, they're Jews. Hamas doesn't like the Jews very much, so maybe that was the reason. I don't know. But either way, these 4 fellas ended up dead, and Hamas has taken the blame. Now, Hamas, I don't think have ever really admitted that they did it, but it seems to be the accepted fact. Now, that's not necessarily truth, but it was sort of the kickstarter for everything that came afterwards, because what happened after that is then a Palestinian teenager was abducted and murdered, presumably in retaliation. Obviously, you fucking killed ours, we're going to do the same to you. And that essentially is what kickstarted the entire the skirmish that's going on right now. It was just, again, there's an underlying feeling of dislike amongst this group. It was a bubbling fucking pot, and it just exploded with these events. It was gonna explode. It just took this for it to happen. No, the problem I have with all this, right, is I come down on the side of Israel. Like, I'm not a Jew, I'm not Israeli, I'm Irish, I'm an atheist, but I'm fucking Catholic born, but so it's not it's got nothing to do with religion or anything like that for me. And I've had discussions with people about, they're like, how can you support Israel? How can you say that? I mean, this ridiculous thing happened there not long ago, such as the anti-Israel sentiment amongst a lot of people. There's a shopping centre not far from where I live, Blackpool Shopping Centre. And they have this feature where they have flags from all over the world strung up in the ceiling. There's like Spain, Ireland, America, all the flags from all over the world, all different countries, including Israel's flag. And for some reason, people took exception to this. They were offended for whatever fucking reason, and the flag was taken down. The Israeli flag was taken down. And that's ridiculous. That's the stupidest thing I've heard since all this started. I mean, the Irish have nothing to do with this conflict. I'm sure there's probably Jews and Muslims living in this country who have an opinion on it, but by and large, it's ridiculous that the idiots who run Black Food Shopping Centres did that because a few people complain. Because again, we've got nothing to do with it, and again, I would be, I suppose, pro-Israel in this matter. Because I've had the argument, people are like, fucking Israel's throwing all this shit, they should know better. Now, I've written down 3 key points that address it for me because, again, as I said, I want this to be a coherent video. I don't want to ramble and have nothing to fucking say. So I wrote down 3 key points. And they're the basic points of arguments I've had with people in regards to why I would come down on the side of Israel for this. Right? Now, the first key point is some say that Israel should know better given that they have superior weaponry to Hamas. Now, it's known, and like Hamas, as much as a terrorist organization as Hamas is, their weaponry ain't that great. Like my dad likes to say, fuck, they're armed with pea shooters. Very fucking dangerous and explosive pea shooters, but that's just metaphor. That's just saying their weaponry isn't advanced. No, Israel, on the other hand, is entirely different matter. They have fighter jets. They have missile defense systems. They have everything. They're well armed. and the attitude of some people is that they should know better firing that kind of grief at Hamas. Now, bear in mind, again, Hamas, for all intents and purposes, fired the first shots in this conflict. If it's true that they're responsible for the deaths of 3 Jewish teenagers, that's bad. I mean, again, just killing somebody just because, there's a Jew, kill it. Again, that's what Hitler did. That ain't right. But the example I always put to people when they make the argument, and that they should know better. Jews should know better. Israel, not Jews, Israel should know better because they're well armed. Hamas aren't. The example I always give is, look, if you have a handgun, a simple handgun with 6 bullets in it, like one of those old revolvers from the West. If you're armed with one of those guns, right, and the opposition is armed with a machine gun, right? Very powerful weapon, superior to a handgun, I think you'll agree. And the moral question there is, if I shoot the guy, if I shoot him in the leg, what is he to do about that? He's going to fire back, even though his gun is massively superior to mine, and he could wipe me out easily. He's going to fire back. So when Hamas started launching their rockets, they started launching their whatever, of course, Israel's of course going to respond with everything they have, as Hamas would if the shoe was on the other foot. If Hamas was the one with the superior weaponry, they wouldn't hesitate to unleash everything on Israel. Now bear in mind, as I've already said, Israel is heavily armed. They've got everything. They're well prepared. Israel and the Jews in general have been the whipping boys of history. They've been blamed for anything and everything from the Great Depression, the fucking recession, and everything. It's all Jews' fault. These paranoid fuckers are like, the Jews run everything, Jews this, Jews that. They've always been blamed for everything. So understandably, they're like, look, we're not we're not being whipped anymore. We're going to fight, we're going to defend ourselves, as they have every right to. Right? But bear in mind how the superior weapons that they have. I've already said that. Israel is holding back. Because again, they're armed to the teeth. All sorts of weapons. I guarantee you, Israel, if they so desired, if they had the will, if they had no conscience, and no moral fucking center whatsoever in wiping out the opposition, they could do it. They're well armed, and they could end that conflict tomorrow. In one fell swoop, if they unleashed everything in their arsenal. But they're holding back because they themselves know, as much as it's as tragic and as sad and as bad it is that so many people are dying in this conflict, it could be worse. Because again, if Israel really unleashed its full force on Hamas, the conflict would be over in the morning, but the death would be fucking through the roof. So this notion that just because they're well armed, better armed than the opposition, that they shouldn't fight back. I mean, what's Israel's expected to do? Put their guns down? Well, our weapons are superior to Hamas. I don't think we should shoot it. Hamas would just fucking keep firing. I mean, they have a right to defend themselves and their citizens. So it's a matter of self-defense. They have the right to do that. Now, the second key topic is some say Israel is going too far with all the innocent civilians dying. And that's the real tragedy in all of this. So many are getting caught in the crossfire of the conflict. The innocent always suffer in wars like this, especially like in World War II. Jews were wiped out in the millions, innocent Germans killed by the Allies because of the carpet bombing, And it's always a sad fact that it's the innocent who suffer more in war than anyone else. Troops die, soldiers die, but it's always the innocent who suffer the worst. But the problem I have there is it's been revealed time and time again in regards to Hamas. Again, Hamas, it seems to me, have no moral center whatsoever. They're fighting for Islam, they're fighting for their thing, fair enough, and to an extent they're defending their own people because Israel's shooting at them, and that's fair enough. As I said, each country has the right to defend themselves. Israel has the right to defend themselves against Hamas. Hamas has the right to defend themselves against Israel. But Hamas's way of doing things is ridiculous. Like Israel, for instance, it's Israel's main function, its primary objective, is the protection of its citizens above all else. I mean, sure, they want to wipe out Hamas. They want to wipe out the terrorist organization. But first and foremost, they want to protect their citizens. They want to protect their people. And what's ridiculous is Israel is going out of its way to ensure their people are safe. As well as they have their weapons that they're firing at Israel, they are also shooting rockets out of the sky. They have defensive weapons that they're using to protect their people. Hamas, on the other hand, seem to be using people, from what I've observed, are using people as shields. Like, again, I've pointed out that it's always the innocent civilians that suffer in this conflict. But Hamas seems to be deliberately going out of their way to ensure that. Now, maybe that's not their intent. Maybe they're not thinking, we're in war against Jews. I know, let's put innocent people in the way. I honestly don't know if that's their intent. Whether they're deliberately or not. But their attitude seems to be, let's put our weapons in civilian areas. Because they're essentially trying to bluff the opposition. That they're not going to fire at us. Surrounded by citizens. Saddam Hussein used to do the same thing with his military bases and other things like that. He used to pack civilians in. I mean, it's been widely reported in the media that Hamas has been found to be storing their weaponry in schools. Video footage has been released showing Hamas firing rockets from the roofs of houses in civilian areas. I mean, the recent tragedy of the two boys who were just kicking a football about a beach. They were just out playing. Sadly, died in an Israeli attack. Now, again, tragic. Again, that's a sad thing. I'm not gonna back and say, oh well, Israel has its rights. No, it was a sad and it was a tragic thing, and then Israel were quick to come out and say, listen, but we didn't mean it. And the deaths of the innocent aren't intentional in this conflict because, again, Hamas seems to be using its own people as a shield. So I suppose in that way it's deliberate. I mean, I like to think that maybe it's not intentional that they're putting their civilians in harm's way. But when you're hiding weapons in school, where children assemble, when you're firing your weapons from the roofs of civilian houses, that clearly you don't have that much concern for the safety of your people. If you're willing to put them in harm's way against a force that will fire them. And as sad as it is, the objective of Israel is protect its people and defeat Hamas. And it's sad that the innocent are getting crushed, but you see, again, the people out there who are defending, Palestinians or defending Hamas, and saying, oh, Israel, you should be ashamed of yourselves. They seem to forget that convenient fact. You see, they're right to point out the innocent civilians, the men, the women, and the children that are dying and being injured in this conflict. They have every right to point that out because it is a tragic, it's sick, and it's wrong. But they're not pointing out that it seems to be Hamas that's deliberately putting them in harm's way. people point out that the ratio, I don't have the exact figure, but apparently today the death toll in this conflict has reached over 1,000. I think 1,200 was the figure I heard. But, and they're quick to point out that the vast majority of deaths are in the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian people are worst hit in this conflict. Some Jews have died as well. Some people in Israel have died as well. Primarily soldiers and some citizens have died. But if you weigh up the ratio between the Palestinians and the Israelis, more Palestinians dead than Israelis. Now, people are quick to jump on that statistic and say, ha, see, Israel's the aggressor, Israel's wrong. And there's talk of war crime. Again, I have no idea about that. I'm not even going to go there because I really don't know what constitutes a war crime. Maybe I should have looked it up, but I didn't. But again, these people who are fucking coming down on Israel for all this death and destruction, in defense of its territory and its people, they're seem to be fucking conveniently forgetting that it's Hamas that's deliberately and intentionally putting these people in harm's way. Because they think Israel's not going to fire. Well, clearly they are. You know, again, they're being fired at daily. They have a right to defend themselves. But Hamas does not have the right to deliberately use people as shields. And that's the one that really gets me. Apologies, I don't know if I went on a bit of a fucking rant, but that's the part that really gets me. Is that the people who are coming down on Israel for doing what they're doing are conveniently forgetting that it's fucking Hamas that are putting these people in harm's way. On purpose, it would seem. So, there you go on that. Now, the final key topic point that I've written down is some say Israel are driving the conflict on. You know, basically what they're saying there is that it's Israel, that the reason the conflict hasn't come to an end, and the reason that things haven't ended yet is fucking, you know, oh, Israel, they keep firing at us, they don't want peace. Israel from the fucking outset, pretty much from the get-go, said, look, we want an end to this. Everyone wants an end to the conflict. God forbid, look, I even think even fucking Hamas want an end to the conflict. But the agenda in regards to what they want to accomplish seems to be different between Hamas and the Israelis, right? As I've said, like, you know, Israel's primary objective, defend our people. Hamas doesn't seem to have that second objective. They just want to kill as many Jews or Israelis as possible, right? But there's been, and the people keep hoping, well, maybe there'll be a ceasefire, maybe things will be handled. And again, they've tried. Again, this is something, again, the fucking people coming down on Israel, this is something that they conveniently forget to fucking mention. Right? Now, I got something here on my phone, I'm going to look away again, so I hope you fucking apologies for this. But, it's been attempted many times. Ceasefires have happened. You know, I mean, there have been attempts to kind of, look, let's stop the fighting. You know, it's like what used to happen in Northern Ireland. You know, the IRA would say, look, Christmas Day, nothing. Sounds like it's been generous, but it's just been stupid, because then you knew inevitably that the fighting would start again. But at least there was a lull in the ceasefire. People could maybe go out, get supplies, prepare for the onslaught that's clearly going to fucking continue. Right, now I've written here that it's been attempted, I think, today 5 times, but I have 4 specific things here. 5 times this has been attempted, right? On July 15th, for instance, Israel suspended all military action, stopped firing their rockets, whatever the fuck they did. They put down their weapons for 6 hours. In that fucking time, a 6-hour ceasefire was agreed, and in that time, Hamas kept firing. You know, Hamas seems to be using ceasefire. They clearly don't know what the word ceasefire means. Ceasefire is basically stop fire. Put the weapons down. Let's talk about this, and then we'll pick up the weapons again later. But basically, a ceasefire is essentially a cessation of all activity. No firing weapons, nothing. Clearly, Hamas don't know that because they used that 6-hour period on July 15th to keep firing. You know, so again, like, you know, that's, and then, again, it boggles the mind when people are coming down on Israel that they don't point this out, because it's clear that Hamas has they have no desire whatsoever for an easy or peaceful resolution to the conflict. There was another one then 2 days later, July 17th. Israel agreed to a UN request for a humanitarian window in Gaza. Essentially what that means is the UN said to Israel and Hamas, listen, we want to come in drop off supplies, humanitarian aid, food, medicine, whatever you need. Would you mind stop firing while we do this? And Israel said, fine, we'll stop. Stop firing. Lo and behold, what happens? Hamas keep fucking firing. Again, that's, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And you think twice is enough, but no. Another fucking ceasefire was called for 3 days later, July 20th. Israel agreed to a Red Cross request for a ceasefire in Shuja'iyah. Apologies to any Israelis or Jews or Muslims if I've mispronounced that. Apparently it's in this specific place over there where they wanted a ceasefire. The Red Cross wanted to go in and help out. Israel said, okay, stop firing. Again, Hamas kept going. Again, it's ridiculous. They keep doing this. I mean, again, they either don't know what the word ceasefire means or they just don't care. Because again, I think they're thinking, Hamas is thinking, probably, they know Israel is better armed. So when there's a cessation in activity, they use that time to try and cause maximum damage as possible. Because their weapons aren't as superior, but if Israel aren't firing, they can do as much damage as they like in that time window. Which they did. And the final one was on July 26th, 6 days after that one. This is the fourth time, bear in mind. Israel again agreed to another humanitarian window in Gaza. They again agreed, look, let's fucking stop firing so that important supplies and shit like that can get to people. Well, lo and behold, Hamas kept firing. And that's what gets me, because Israel keeps talking about, look, we want an end to this conflict, we want to put the weapons down, let's talk about it, but clearly Hamas aren't interested. Hamas seems to, as much as a lot of the damage is done from Israeli weapons, because clearly they have the superior firepower. If Hamas was serious about peace negotiations or serious about ending the conflict and putting the weapons down, they wouldn't do that. They'd say, look, there's a 6-hour ceasefire means stop firing for 6 hours, let's talk. Again, clearly Hamas don't know the meaning of that word. I've said that already. They don't. Their objective is, we want to wipe out the state of Israel, and they haven't accomplished that goal. Israel simply, no, we exist, you exist. Let's just find the peace, and we'll leave it at that. But again, Hamas want their objective completed, which is, let's kill every Israeli, every Jew, let's wipe out the state. That's what they want to do. So, yeah, I don't know what more else I can say in regards to the subject. I mean, hopefully it'll sort itself out. I mean, it won't sort itself out. That's kind of like, oh, well, let's lay back and see what happens. Hopefully it'll get sorted out. Hopefully Hamas will finally fucking see sense after all the deaths, because I can't believe that the leaders in Hamas, the people in Hamas, look at the dead, look at all these people who are dying in this conflict, and think it's worth it. No, it's not worth it. I mean, again, over 1,000 people are dead in this, mostly Palestinians. I can't think that they're looking at that thinking, their thinking seems to be, we will avenge, we will avenge. That attitude would get you nowhere. Because as soon as you take your revenge, the fuckers who you screwed over are going to be like, well, we'll take our revenge. And it'll just be a never-ending back and forth fight. And Israel has the right to defend itself, basically. Because again, as I said, I'm on Israel's side in this. Because they want a quick end to this conflict, and clearly Hamas don't. I mean, it can be summed up perfectly by this. Israel Prime Minister, the guy named Benjamin Netanyahu, he summed it up perfectly when he said, this is what he said, and I quote, "If the Arabs put down their weapons today, there would be no more war." Very nice. But if Israel put down their weapons, there would be no more Israel. And that's the point really there, right? Because as I've already said, Hamas want to wipe Israel out. So if Hamas were to put their weapons down and engage in good negotiations and decent and honest fucking negotiations, the war would end no more death, peace reign. But, as old Benjamin said, if Israel were the ones to put the weapons down, Hamas would just keep firing. Again, there have been 4 ceasefires. There have been 4 attempts at a ceasefire, and each and every fucking time, Hamas broke it. So it's clear that if Israel put its weapons down, Hamas would just keep firing until every last Israeli was dead. Because that's their objective. That's what they want. But again, it just bothers me that I would hope, I don't know how many people will see this one, but I would hope that there are people who are anti-Israel, I would hope they see this. Because maybe they'll have learned a few things that they didn't know before. You know, but when I pointed these things out to people who are anti-Israel, who are against Israel, they have a tendency to just ignore it. You know, that's what a lot of people are. The media coverage of this is incredibly biased from the get-go. The media is not necessarily saying Israel are the aggressors, Israel are evil, Israel are bad. They're not. The media aren't saying that. But the media is heavily reporting on the Palestinian side of things and talking about the Israeli weapons did this. These people are dead, women and children. And again, all tragic things I think we can all agree. But what's bad about that kind of coverage is they're not really pointing out, Hamas's side of things. They seem to be, because again, they want you to watch their coverage. They want you to buy their newspapers. They want you to watch the news, right? So they're going to cover what's more interesting, what will draw in the viewers, and what will draw in the viewers is the death of innocents and the conflict and all the badness. And the majority of that does seem to be on the side of the Palestinians, because again, the statistics seem to be that it's more Palestinians dead in this conflict than Israelis. And they're focusing heavily on that, which is really making Israel look bad. And now maybe that's not the intent of the media, but it's an incredibly biased coverage because they're not pointing out the hypocrisy of Hamas. Or if they do point it out, they give it a brief little mention, and then that's it. Then they're like, well, Hamas ignored ceasefires. But, loads of death in the fucking Gaza Strip. And again, it's newsworthy and it deserves to be pointed out, but I would prefer the media, the news, to be more balanced rather than coming down on one side or the other. Whether you come down on the Israeli side or on the fucking Palestinian side, make things proper balanced. Don't come down on one side or the other. But now there it is. I sincerely hope, God willing. It's strange as an atheist saying that, but it's just a phrase. Hopefully that the conflict will end soon. I hope so. And I hope that both sides, again, Israel wants to see the end of the fighting. They'd like to see the end of Hamas. But I get the impression that Israel also would be like, look, we'll negotiate, we'll do whatever is necessary to bring peace. They may be willing to negotiate with Hamas. I don't know. We'll find that out in the coming days and weeks. Hopefully it won't be that long. I hope the whole thing ends soon. I hope Israel stops firing its weapons, and I hope Hamas stops firing its weapons. I certainly wouldn't want one side to put down its weapons and the other side not to. That would be hypocritical. It would be stupid if Hamas said, fine, we'll put our weapons down. It would be silly of Israel to keep pointing its weapons. I would want both sides to put weapons down. Not just Hamas, not just Israel, both of them. And then just meaningful talking. And hopefully bring an end to this, because again, enough people have died. Like Bob Dylan said in that song, he goes, how many deaths would it take till they know that too many people have died? Hopefully it won't take too many, because it's already fucking too many. Enough people have died, so hopefully put an end to the damn thing. Okay? Right, well, that's about covered that. I hope you like this video. Again, if feel free to leave comments. My email and Twitter names are all in the end credits of this episode, so feel free to let me know what you think. If you want, feel free to make suggestions of future topics, perhaps. I'm always on the lookout for something new to talk about. And again, as I said, I'll be making two videos. Two videos will be released this week, and the next one is of a more lighter, you know. I won't say exactly what it is I'm going to talk about, but it has to do with the recent San Diego Comic Con that happened recently. I've got something happened there that I want to talk about, and if you want to know what it is I'm going to talk about, check other previous videos, because I did a couple of videos on one particular subject. That's a big clue as to what I'm going to talk about. But it'll be this was a pretty heavy video, and I look forward to talking about something more lighthearted, something more nice. So again, hope you enjoy this. Feel free to tell friends, spread the link, do whatever, and take care. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.